Shelby City Council of December 2nd, 2024. Thanks everyone for coming out tonight and for any of those tuning in by way of social media. I do ask that if you are here that you turn off any of your technology, cell phones, turn them to silent so we're not disturbed. We will begin the meeting with a invocation. I've asked Councilperson Bullock to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand for the invocation. Let us pray. Almighty God, as we begin this meeting, we call upon your presence and wisdom in all that we say and do. Thank you for this day, Father, and all of the blessings that we've enjoyed. And Father, during this Christmas season of Advent, we recall the words of Scripture that proclaim glory to God in the highest and on earth, peace, goodwill towards all people. Help us, Father, to be mindful of these timeless words and the true meaning of this special time of year. For it's all these things we ask in your precious and holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Council, the first order of business is the approval of the agenda.
I make a motion we approve the agenda as is.
I have a motion from Mr. White to adopt the agenda as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is public comment. This is a time when citizens can come forward and speak for 3 minutes on any topic they'd like to speak on. We'll just ask that when you come, if you would please state your name and address. And we do have one person signed up, and it's Byron Antonio Moon. And there he is on the front row. Right there.
Howdy. How's everyone doing today?
Good, thank you. Very good.
I'm glad. By the way, I'm not a Cowboys fan. This is a sweater from my grandma, so I have to get that out the way. You know, I'm an Eagles fan, so go Eagles. My topic of discussion was mental health. As some of you know, I'm a huge advocate for mental health. You know, my main passion is psychology, mental health, helping people out that needs it and people that don't need it. Or, well, I feel like everyone needs it. People that don't want it, I want to guide them in a way in which we're not forcing them to get it, but have the options accessible, you know. And I'm realizing that a lot of the options that are open to us, they're not as accessible as need to be. There's a lot of things that I've discovered on the internet that aren't easily accessible for people without internet. And people with internet wouldn't know what to look up. There's no main website. There's no main, you know, it's just hard for people to figure it out, you know. And another thing is, my main thing is to, you know, bring a mental health facility here. You know, that's what I want to do myself. You know, if no one does it, I'm going to do it. But I want us all to do it together as a whole, as one, you know. I just feel as though someone needs to lead the cause. So I just really, really and truly am very passionate about mental health. And there's a lot of people out here that I see that needs help, you know, whether it's substance, whether it's living condition, whether it's, you know, just housing, you know. And I've fallen under a multitude of those right there, you know, that I've just listed, you know. And I just think, I know that a lot of people deserve more accessible, not just health care, but mental health care, mental wellness. You know, everyone deserves to be well mentally. Everyone deserves to have a good shot at mental health, mental wellness, you know, being able to go to sleep and, you know that everything's okay, that someone cares, that they're heard, you know. It's one thing to be heard. It's one thing for somebody to listen, but it's another thing for somebody to hear you and process what they're saying and actually put something positive and progressive into fruition. You know, everyone listens, but not a lot of people hear what everyone's saying. And I really know for a fact that as a community it wouldn't take us long to make something happen, you know, with everyone out here and with everyone that's not here right now. We can all make it happen. And I'm just going to keep on pushing the cause, you know. I want to, you know, have a nonprofit. I want to start up a nonprofit and, you know, help a bunch of people out here too. You know, there's a lot of things I want to do to bring the Shelby, North Carolina, you know, the East Coast to the U.S., you know, everywhere. I just want to help people, you know. And a lot of people don't get a second chance. And a lot of people don't understand that hurt people as well. You know, a lot of people don't look at them in the sense of just because they hurt someone else that they haven't been hurt themselves.
Thank you, Mr. Moon. Appreciate your comments.
Yes, sir.
Your time's up, and I appreciate your passion, and your topic is certainly, we hear you on this issue. Thank you.
y'all. I appreciate y'all. Have a great night. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Oh, just for,
That's all we have for public hearing, or public comment, excuse me. So we will move on to our public hearing. Right. Mr. Burgess, thank you.
Thank you,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Mayor, Council. It has slowly dawned on me that I am the only agenda item of consideration other than the consent agenda tonight, so I'm depending on you to let me know if folks are throwing stuff at me behind me. So I'm going to go through this as quickly as possible, but do, by all means, stop me if there's something you'd like for me to clarify. So what you have in front of you, or I guess it was really an online thing because it was about 300 pages, so we figured we'd save some trees, is what we in the planning department have started calling the bandage bundle. It's basically something to kind of keep us limping along until we get to do a full UDO rewrite to get to where we really want to see things, but this will keep things rolling until then. There's sort of two things happening in this bandage bundle. The first one is the UNC School of Government has reviewed our UDO and offered comment on places where we were not in compliance with the 160D state law change. The things that were just shown in red on the packets that you were given are those laws. There's not a lot of wiggle room on those. We have to be compliant with state law. The other one is, the other sections were highlighted in yellow. Those are staff recommendations to clarify some text or to fill some gaps that we found. So I'm not going to go into detail on the state law things. It's largely code references where we said 168. It actually needs to be 160D, that kind of stuff. But I am going to go into what we're recommending to make sure you guys are all comfortable with that and answer any questions before we hear from anyone and vote on it. So one of the first ones is adjusting certified mail to first-class mail for notification of violations. The reason for that is we actually have a better response rate when we do first-class mail than certified, but we pay $10 for certified and roughly $1 for the first class. So we're paying 10 times as much for about half of the success. On top of that, we have had some success hand delivering things as well. Both our staff as well as the police department has been very helpful in trying to get in touch with folks, which first class mail and hand delivery is something the state does allow us to do. There's a clarification for boarding and rooming house. Right now in our UDO, there's a gap. So if you are trying to provide housing for between 5 and 14 people, that doesn't exist in the UDO, which doesn't make a lot of sense. The reason for that is because building code says that a family can be up to 5 unrelated folks, and the rooming house definition said 14 unrelated folks. So in between that, there was nothing. This would just close that gap and say, essentially, if it's not a family, that 5 or under, then you become a rooming house. It just fixes that for it. It would also clarify event venues, so we don't actually have anything right now on our UDO that deals with event venues directly. We've been kind of fitting a square peg into a round hole when it comes to those as they've come in. This establishes 2 different classifications, large or small, the threshold being 50 folks or less, 50 folks or more, as allowed by fire occupancy. And so small event venue has obviously relaxed standards. This is something where you may have folks come together for a small wine tasting or a book club or something, but that's all that space is used for. And of course, larger event venues could be weddings or if you want to have birthday parties, things like that. Those have higher standards. You need to be a little bit further away from property lines, landscaping, make sure you're not bothering neighbors, that kind of thing. We also don't have any food truck standards right now, but I'm sure you guys have noticed we do have food trucks. So this will allow us to address those. I think I mentioned several times, I used to work at City of Hickory. I just will say lovingly borrowed their standards and sort of laid those into ours. They've worked fairly well for the last few years, so I'm confident that they would work here as well. There's a whole section, it's kind of funny. We have an Appendix A, which is our UDO, and in that Appendix A, there's an Appendix A that is all of these standards. It's clear as mud. The problem is that right now, it's in the UDO, so it has the force of law. But some of the stuff that's in there, I have an example. If you're doing a preliminary plat, you have to put a note on there talking about where the septic system's going to be. Not every project has a septic system, but if I'm reading this black and white, you better have that note on there, otherwise we're breaking the law in a way. That doesn't make a lot of sense, so what this would do is remove it and allow staff to treat this as a policy rather than as an ordinance. So we can look at a project and go, our policy is when this happens, you do these things, and it allows us to respond to new and emerging issues. So if we realize that we need to see more information as to where utility lines are located, we can ask for that at that point, whereas right now, if it's not in there, we can't. This is a really complicated one. In fact, we've been talking about this pretty much nonstop since I got here, but clarifying townhouse standards. I'll do my best to give the high-level explanation, and feel free to press me on if you need to, but state law says that we can't have definitions of dwellings, sleeping units, and a couple of other things that differs from what the building code or other state laws define them as. One of the things is that in the residential building code, townhouses are considered part of a building, which means that I have to treat townhouses as single-family units because they're in the 1 and 2 family building code. There's some caveats to that. If you're not buying the ground beneath you, and if there's no firewall in between it, that's just multifamily at that point. But if it's a true townhouse, I've got to treat it like a single family according to state law. This clarifies that and makes sense of the way that you can't really have a side setback if it's a townhome. So we don't have that explanation in our UDO. This puts that in there. Right now, we allow more than one principal structure per lot. That's counter to best practice because if, let's say, for example, I've got a piece of land, I build 2 homes, and even if they can meet the standards, I give one to my brother, and then my brother gets upset with me and says, I'm selling this home, and then I get someone I really don't like. We've both got a structure on the same lot, and it gets messy really fast. This doesn't count for accessory dwelling units like a granny flat or something like that, but true 2 single-family principal structure homes. We would no longer allow those on one lot together. I'm also recommending the removal of our plan unit development section, mostly because our conditional zonings are just that now. It's just, we call it something different, but it's effectively the same thing. We have a caveat for, it says sensitive uses. It's largely outdoor flea markets and homeless shelters that says that special use permits have to be renewed every year. As I'm reading state law, I don't think we have the authority to do that, but we do have the authority to do inspections, and if they fail those inspections, then we can revoke the special use permit. So this just puts us a little bit closer to what we're supposed to do in those. It also would explicitly prohibit video arcades and fish games. I know that no one in this room has ever had to go to those places because we're all very morally upstanding and responsible people, but in Hickory, we had a really big problem with them. Fish games were a way to get around a legal statement that said that games of skill were still allowed. It was not gambling if it's a skill game. But these fish games were skill in the same way that I am underweight. And so there was a lawsuit. Catawba County went to for years about this, and we finally got a decision, and this would just bring us into compliance about it.
Is this video poker stuff? Is that what
Yes, yes, sir, exactly. Yeah. The game in this is that you're technically like casting a line or hitting a fish on a table.
Oh, I see.
But the chances of it actually working are random, and so there's no skill involved in that at all.
Gotcha.
So we currently don't allow feather flags in our ordinance because those are portable signs, but we've had some confusion as to whether or not we do, so this just says explicitly, no, we don't. And this is one of my personal favorites. I've stolen some language that I've used basically where I've worked that says that if you put one of your "We Buy Houses" signs in the right of way, you have forfeit your property right to that sign, and I can pick it up and throw it in the garbage immediately. That's something code enforcement has been doing, but as of right now, we hold on to those for a little while and give folks the opportunity to come get them. And we know what happens if they come get them. They go put them right back.
Does that include political signs?
Political signs are protected by state law.
I knew that. I wish we could change that.
Now, I'll say the same thing I told the planning board. If I see a Ross Perot sign, it's going in the trash. There's definitely a shot clock on that for sure. But
And you got 10 days.
10 days after the election, if you are in the so it's 30 days before an election. If you win your primary, you get to keep it up all the way through the election cycle, and then 10 days after.
But we have no way of enforcing that, do we? Really?
Yeah.
Or
I do.
Yeah.
So you can pick them up.
If it's after an election and I know that everything's good, I can go pick them up and throw them away.
Well, there's an awful lot of them still out there.
Yep.
It constitutes abandoned property.
Yeah.
Abandoned property belongs to no one, so it becomes trash.
Yeah.
Well, I've been told otherwise, but I got you. I hear you. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Glad to know that.
I have a particular fondness for picking those things up and throwing away. I think they really junk up an intersection.
Good.
And they always go in like the most traveled intersection, so it always looks the
Yeah,
worst. So
it's terrible.
They keep me up at night. And then finally, aligning Articles 9 and 11. We had a weird thing where Article 11 is our development standards. So basically, if you're doing a specific use, here's the stuff you have to do that accompanies that use. And it would say that certain uses are allowed, but they wouldn't be included in the table of permitted uses, which was confusing because it says yes one place and no in another place. So what this does is just, if it was allowed in Article 11, I've inserted that into the table of permitted uses to make sure those two articles speak to each other.
Brian, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
What's
Yes, ma'am.
what's a feather flag?
They're roughly 8 to 10 feet tall. They kind of go over like this and they flap in the wind.
I wondered what those were called. Yes.
Thank you. I thought that's what it was, but I just wanted to double check.
So we are not allowed, clarify that.
In the right of way.
At all. So those are portable signs.
Okay.
And our ordinance currently says that you can't have those. There are some caveats to that if you've got a temporary sign, you could potentially do that. So like banners and things like that are allowed.
Right.
But broadly, like if you just go put one out, no, that's not.
On your own property.
Correct.
Right.
Okay. We're going to get pushback on that.
Yes.
There's a
Okay.
lot of
And,
that. There's a lot.
I've already had 3 or 4 calls,
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
but I've told them they got to get rid of them.
And now, is there a way they can make those permanent so they can have them? I know there's some business owners that are going to,
Only if you change the policy.
I don't think we should change the policy for that because we got a lot of the food truck people that
yeah,
when they set up somewhere, they'll set those flags out. So
and they should.
I think we need to keep that like it is.
By all
But in
means.
regard to the political flags,
The political signs,
you know,
yeah.
I mean, the signs, I've always been of the opinion, and what I was taught, when you put your signs up, and as soon as the election over, I always take them down.
Yeah.
So, and I don't depend on somebody else to have to take them down.
So,
That's the right
That's
thing to do.
Right, and that's what the Board of Elections tells you is the law.
That's
A lot
right.
of people don't do it, though.
That's
and
right.
but back to feather flags. I know that they fall under temporary signage, and we don't allow temporary signage, which is why we are including them in this. But is there any other reason that justifies us not allowing that particular type of advertisement for business owners on their own property?
They're broadly distracting to traffic is one of the
That's
reasons
what I
why
was gonna
folks
say,
have.
distraction.
I would agree if our ordinance limited that to removing them within the right of way, but if they're like in a person's flower pot by their front door of their property, that's not distracting.
I
to
think
anyone.
there's
10 feet high.
I would suggest that's a bigger
Discretionary.
policy issue because they are prohibited now.
I
That's
know.
right.
I understand they're prohibited
Right.
now.
So,
I just don't think they should be.
well, and I understand. I think to not belabor it, Brian is going to be, once the comprehensive plan is completed, Brian is going to be bringing back a plan to move forward with reviewing the UDO.
Okay.
Provisions just such as that, that council can then consider
Great.
and change or leave the same or modify.
Yeah, I think
that
that
correct, Mr. Burgess?
particular,
Yeah, if it's of any help to, our senior planner, Audrey,
Yep.
used to be with Uptown Shelby.
Yep.
The first thing she did was clarify some language in this and said, if you've got, like in Uptown Shelby, if you've got those flags that go out, those are not included in that. So this is not something where folks are kind of putting it up on their buildings.
I understand that.
This is where they're
That's right.
completely going up and down the road with them. That
That's
Well,
right.
so there was a case in point, it was a business, I think I even talked to Rick about this years ago. Business on 74, near, I don't know, where Mighty Dollar used to be, right? In one of the little strip things, far away from the road. And they had a flower pot next to their front door, and they had a feather flag that said sale or something, right? And they were told to remove it, which seemed ridiculous to me. And in those cases, like, yeah, if it was up in the right of way by 74 between the, the access road and so, I would have been like, yeah, you take that out. That's crazy. But on their property, in their flower, anyway, what I'm saying is I would be in favor of, on that one point, going into, more detail once, having a discussion about allowing that at some point, making it allowable. Because I just don't think that that's a distraction to drivers to have them by people's, right by their business. Anyway, I think that's overreach a little bit on people's right to, I don't know.
I think it is I think there is a thin line that you have to kind of stay within, but what's reasonable. I would expect there'd be some amount of discretion on the part of enforcement of if it is truly something that's not objectionable, close to a home, close to a building, whatever. I mean, I know that's a little bit getting in the gray areas, and you want to be clear on what the policy or what the ordinance is, but I think there is some discretion. I don't know if there maybe coming back with some clarifying language. I don't know. I'm just kind of in response to Ms. Art's point. I think there is some validity to it.
I'm
Think it
just
does.
thinking about 12 feet high flags in the state's right of way.
Sure, that's obviously.
Get rid of them.
Well,
but-
that's
For sure.
yeah. I think the issue is more if it's
Anyway,
smaller and less
Three
intrusive.
feet high.
I just didn't want us to I wanted us to go into more detail about it when the time comes so that we are not overreaching
Okay.
on people's ability to advertise their business.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
I would just say that and other bigger policy issues that come up from time to time that certainly have been identified by council would all be part of that process.
Perfect, thank you. Sorry to go off on a tangent, I just wanted to make sure that
No.
you understood at some point I was gonna bring that up again.
No, yeah. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, that's
and
what he's here for. Those questions are
Yeah,
valid. Go ahead.
thank you.
And it sounds like maybe a distance from the right-of-way discussion. Absolutely, we could go more into that. I'm
Thank you.
more than happy to look into that. So, summary of the request is the first part, bringing the UDO into compliance with 160D. And then also those small day-to-day matters until we can go through the full UDO rewrite process. The Planning and Zoning Board has recommended approval, and this item does require a vote and a statement of consistency similar to rezoning.
All right. Any more questions for Mr. Burgess? Everybody clear on it? I know I had to go through, and this was not included in our agenda packet. It was a separate document. It was, what, 350 pages or some incredibly large amount. So, all right, more questions? No, we're not taking questions, sir. It's between council and him, so. Any more questions? All right. We are opening our public hearing at 6:24. And we have no one signed up, so I'll close the public hearing at 6:25. Now we can have more discussion amongst council. Work.
Good job discussing.
All right, you do have an ordinance that's been prepared, so the chair will entertain a motion if you were so inclined to dispose of this matter.
I make a motion that we approve ordinance number 68, 2024.
All right, have a motion.
for the reasons that it is consistent with our adopted comprehensive land use plan.
All right. Ms. Orth has made the motion to adopt ordinance number 68, 2024 with the
And
statement
it's
of reasonable,
because it brings
right,
us
statement of
into-
reasonableness.
Yeah, it brings us into compliance with what the state requires.
All right. Motion's been made, statement of reasonableness has been made. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is our consent agenda, and I will read these just for the record. Approval of our resolution approving acceptance and maintenance and ownership of the water and sewer infrastructure extensions for the Seattle Crossing subdivision. Number 2 is approval of a resolution revising and amending the personnel policies of the City of Shelby to provide an updated personnel policy and procedure manual. Number 3 is approval of a resolution accepting a dedication of land for a portion of Farm Road. Number 4 is adoption of a budget ordinance amendment for the City of Shelby City Hall Annex renovation project. Number 5 is adoption of an ordinance amending the City of Shelby's schedule of fees. Number 6 is Substation 8 Copper Line Reconductoring Project. Number 7 is approval of a resolution authorizing the city manager to solicit bids from qualified construction firms to stabilize the historic Webley property. And number 8 is approval of a resolution authorizing the acceptance of a compensation for service as Director of the Electric Cities of North Carolina, Inc. Board of Directors. Those are the consent agenda items. Chair will entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
I move to adopt the consent agenda.
I have a motion from Mr. Hopter to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. We have no unfinished business. We have no new business tonight. We are down to the city manager's report. Mr. Howe.
Yes, sir, thank you. I'm going to touch on a few of these things, but not all of them. I'll follow up with an email with details on some of the others, but I don't want to go into too much. So the 24-inch crosstown water main project, you all probably aware is still construction on the section of South Morgan Street. Staff tells me they've run into some bad soil, potentially contaminated soil, and they have tested the soil, and they're going to have to deal with that once they find out the results. So that has sort of stalled that project, if you wondered why it was not moving forward. So I'll keep you an update on that one. The Hickory Creek sewer outfall replacement is largely complete. I think there's a few things that remain, and I think final completion is scheduled for later this month after long last. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Water treatment filter project is moving slowly. Filters 1 and 2, of the total of 8, are now being rehabbed, and then I think there are still close to 80 valves, sedimentation valves that still have to be replaced. That project is behind, but hopefully we'll catch up in the coming months. I think that's the main thing. Staff is moving forward also with the First Broad River outfall improvement. That's the $12 million plus project to replace an aging sewer collection line along the First Broad River. County Home Road, that project, Mr. Arbor informs me, is finally going to proceed. As you all know, we waited for a long time for the relocation of the Duke power line.
Yeah.
Duke Energy line, that got embroiled in some private property easement discussions, disagreements. I think they finally have been resolved, and Duke will be relocating that line, I think, beginning around the first of the year, with construction on that little connector road beginning shortly thereafter. And I think
Has
Borough indicates that a completion date by the end of February.
So there is a contractor lined up to do that work?
Yeah, council has already awarded that bid previously.
Wow, that's been a while, hasn't it?
It has.
Been a while.
And then the contractors maintained the price?
Yes.
Wow.
Surprisingly so. And then also, just want to mention a couple things to you, or one thing in particular. I shared with you, both via email, but also at your place, the tier designations that are established by the North Carolina Department of Commerce every basically breaks all counties, all 100 counties down into 3 different tiers in terms of economic distress. Tier 1 being the 40 most distressed counties, Tier 2 being the next 40 distressed counties, and then Tier 1 are the least distressed counties in the state. I'm bringing it to your attention because Cleveland County had previously moved from a Tier 1 to a Tier 2, moving to a less distressed level. The reason that's important is that it does indicate that the economic indicators that the state uses, which some of them lag, and they explain themselves in the documents you have, it indicates that Cleveland County now is more distressed based upon the 4 indicators that they use. I do want to say that's not an all-inclusive, doesn't mean that that's the end-all, that things are worse off here than necessarily we believe they are. But what it does is offers the city and the county more opportunity for economic assistance from the state.
Right.
In the form of waiving grant matches for water and sewer grants that we receive for economic development projects. It does make some additional grant funding available to the city and the county for that matter. And it also does impact the level of incentives that a company could receive to come to a county that is one of the more distressed. So I just wanted you to be aware of it. It's a system that's been in place for a number of years. The criteria have changed over time. I think they're pretty self-explanatory. It's a public document. It's available on the North Carolina Department of Commerce website, but I wanted you to have it. And if you do have any questions at any point in time about that, please feel free to give me a call. Brandon's fairly versed in it as well. So that's all I have. I do want to ask Mr. Burgess to come up and give you kind of an overview of the change that has taken place in state law that we will also have to comply with. And I'm not going to steal his thunder, but as you know, the General Assembly passed the clean relief bill just recently, another one. There was an obscure provision within that bill that affects how city council exercises its authority. It actually reduces your authority related to zoning. So I'm going to ask Mr. Burgess just to give you a high-level overview of how that will impact the city, not just the city of Shelby, but all cities and counties that exercise zoning authority statewide. Mr. Burgess.
Thank you. So currently, 160D 601 prohibits downzoning unless it's consented to by a property owner or initiated by the authority having jurisdiction, the city or the county involved. Downzoning is currently defined as changing the zoning of a parcel so that it lowers the developable density of that parcel or reduces the amount of permitted uses that would be allowed there. So effectively, you're taking opportunity away by initiating that rezoning. It's perfectly fine if the owner comes in and says, no, this is what I want. But or right now, if the city says, yeah, but this is what's best, but a developer or something can't come in and ask for it. The SB 382 is the recently adopted law that says that local governments can no longer initiate those downzonings. And it adds on the caveat that another form of downzoning would be to create nonconformities. So, for example, if you have a scrap yard that is allowed in a certain zoning district and someone, the city or some other interested party came in and said, we would like to change this to a zoning district that does not allow the use that it currently is, that would also be considered downzoning and would be prohibited under this new law. There's some talk that there may be some changes to it, but that's, it may not. So as of right now, that's what we're looking at.
Thank you. Interesting. Is that all you have, Mr. House?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, we are down to our council announcements and remarks. I will just make everyone aware there's a number of upcoming events on the handout that staff has provided. I would encourage you to take a look at those and attend as many of those as you can. And it's hard to believe we're into December now, and a time of year when we start wishing each other Happy New Year and Merry Christmas, but we are that time of year, believe it or not. So this will be our last meeting of this year, so our last formal meeting. So I hope everybody has a good holiday, and certainly the public and all our citizens. I know we had a great turnout at the Christmas parade yesterday. It was a big crowd. I couldn't believe it.
I was surprised how many people.
Yeah, it was a big
Best
turnout.
I've ever seen.
They did, the organizers did a great job uptown Shelby. Very proud of them. Of course, Saturday night had the big tree lighting, and there was a big crowd up there. It was about as many people as I've seen uptown for that. It was big, so yeah, it's kind of exciting to see all the people out in our community.
The fleas did well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, Mr. Hopper, you got anything for us you want to share?
No, enjoyed the parade yesterday.
Yeah.
Right kind of weather. And
Yeah, it's
I'm glad they moved the date up early.
Yeah, I think
As
we
opposed to being late in December.
yeah, I think we all like it.
Yeah, it's a great day for it. That's
Dr.
all I have.
Weber, you got anything for us?
Just ditto to what Mr. Hopper said. I thoroughly enjoyed the parade. A lot of people, big crowd, very festive. Weather was nice, and everything turned out well. Appreciate the city staff, police, and others who worked to set up all the barricades and so forth. Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Cosby?
Merry Christmas to everyone.
All right. Mr. White?
I guess you know you were putting your life in your hands. You were riding in front of me yesterday.
I know I was, and we were nervous.
I got a little concerned about that.
We were looking over our back shoulder.
Right, we was aware of that.
Yeah, Mr. Hopper was driving. He was
Yeah, I was
aware.
driving.
You good?
Just wanted to report on Santa's missing reindeer in the parade yesterday. I hear that they rest for the month of December, and so that's why the horse was standing in the parade for Santa's
Oh,
reindeer.
is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I appreciate
Well,
that.
that's
I'm
good.
sure.
I checked up on it. The
Clarified
reindeer
that.
are perfectly fine.
Oh, good.
The
I'm-
horse was just, filling in while those
The
reindeer
horse
were.
just wasn't up to it.
Well, no, the reindeer just, they rest up for the big day.
Yeah, so,
Anyway,
Well, thanks for letting us
you're
know.
welcome.
I'm sure we were all wondering
There
about
was,
that.
no, there was a lot of,
I know
there
there
was a lot
was.
of questions about that, so I
I
found
know.
out.
I appreciate the clarification. Good. Ms. Bullock, you got anything?
Merry Christmas, everybody.
All right, very good. All right, is everybody ready to adjourn? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
All right, I have a motion from Ms. Arth to adjourn. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. We're adjourned. Merry Christmas.